Welcome to the castle, everyone. My name is Alex. I am your player, your GM, your host for A Table for One, a solo role-playing podcast. This is episode 13 of The Secret of the Dragon Emperor, an adventure for Dragonbane, and of course I'm running through this solo with only Rorik and Jaina, and of course their new goblin friend, Grub. In the last episode, Jaina was kind of off on her own a little bit, having to protect both Rorik and Grub. Luckily, she managed to get Grub out of a very sticky situation, almost being devoured by a warg in the forest surrounding Rittermound. And they actually made it back to Outskirt with the help of some very merry bandits, of all things. Of course, Jaina did give up some of the precious loot that they found in Rittermound to make it happen, but the most important thing is they are now safe within Outskirt. And this gives Rorik and Grub some time to heal up. But there are a couple things that we do need to address right off the bat. A couple of minor things, just some rule keeping stuffs that we need to remember going forward. The first thing actually concerns torches and how I've been playing with torches in the past. So torches are a really weird thing because on the card itself, it does say that it automatically hits, although it can be dodged or parried. I think this is pretty broken in a sense because it automatically hits, it deals 2d6 fire damage, but more importantly, it's fire damage, which means it can hit ghosts and the supernatural and things like that. So it's a way to hit a supernatural monster without needing a magical weapon. And for a while, that actually really struck me as off. And so I wanted to kind of homebrew a rule to make it a little bit more difficult. But the book has already made it a little bit more difficult, and you really have to read the rules in order to find that little teeny tiny print. Originally, I was going to have it that a torch can only be used once for an attack, but here's what it actually says, and this is actually on page 78 in the Gears section of the core rulebook. A torch illuminates a 10-meter radius. It burns up to a shift of time, so we do need to keep track of time for the sake of our torches. But you do roll a d6 after each stretch of time, or if the torch is used as a weapon. On a 1, the torch goes out, and we're going to pretty much say that when the torch goes out from that roll, it's unusable. You cannot use it as a weapon, and you can no longer use it as a viable light source. We definitely need to keep track of that specific rule because giving Grub a torch now, as being the torchbearer and being able to actually hit all those big bad meanies that actually need fire damage or a magical weapon to actually deal damage, that's kind of broken. But with this, it should help to kind of mitigate that. And that's kind of why in the last couple episodes I've really been a little bit hesitant to actually have Grub do attacking with the torch, because it is quite broken in a sense. The last thing, we're pretty much going to say that this is a discovery on Jaina and Rorik's part, but when they went from Rittermound to Outskirts, they would have noticed that Grub really does not like being in the sunlight, and goblins specifically cannot be in the sunlight. So here's what it actually says in the core rulebook concerning goblins. In addition to being non-monster, they're also nocturnal. In direct sunlight, goblins get a bane on all rolls and suffer d6 damage per stretch. A thick layer of clouds or full cover clothing are enough to avoid the effect. But we do have blankets and we do have cloaks, so it isn't that much of a stretch to say that Jaina and Rorik have kind of taken care of Grub on the journey to Outskirt. Of course, we'll probably want to get him something that's specific to him, his own thing. That way he's just not running around with borrowed clothing that's like way too big for him. And speaking of which, let's get to the actual adventure for today. So we're back in Outskirt. We're paying 5 silver to sleep at the inn for the night because they would have gotten there around evening time when the band of merry men have actually escorted them to Outskirt, and now they should all be back up to full HP, full WP, all of that. And not only that, I think Jaina is going to spend a little bit extra. 6 copper for a bath at the inn. Yeah, I think that's in order here because she's definitely been through quite a bit to get Rorik and Grub to this safe spot. considering that she only had like 5 HP left. So yeah, I think she deserves a little bit of a break here. So what are we going to do now that we're in Outskirt, fully healed up? Well, I think it's actually time for a scene. Rorik is going to go out looking for Quasimoon, and he's going to start asking questions. So let's see what that's all about. Rorik descends the stairs leading to the main floor of the Three Stags Inn. It is late afternoon, and while it's not the busiest hour for the tavern, it is starting to pick up. Nevertheless, Rorik manages to find himself a table, and he takes a seat. He spots Annabella making her way from table to table. He watches her as he crosses his arms across his chest. When she finally gets to him, he makes no attempt at small talk, not this time. There's only one question he wants an answer to. Where's the mallard? There's a slight pause to Annabella, a widening of the eyes and a tensing of her body. She finally comes to a conclusion.
He's the one that did this to you?
Yes, and he's made off with something rather important.
I don't know what to say, Rorik. I mean, I haven't seen Quasimoon since you left.
Rorik notices Wagenhild staring daggers their way. He tries to relax his features. Look, he comes round here. Just let me know. Please? I don't want a person like that around my sister. Annabella relaxes herself, but her features do little to display the hint of sadness in her eyes. She gives a curt nod just as Wagenhild slaps a hand on the table.
Everything all right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I was just getting to know Rorik a little more. You can learn a lot about what kind of man a person is based on the adventures he lives.
Yes. Well, there's other folk that need tending to.
Rorik watches as Annabella trots off. Wagenhild lifts her hand from the table and gives Rorik a stern look before rolling her eyes.
Men.
So no such luck in finding Quasimoon. That's quite unfortunate, but that's okay. The next step is that, well, we're going to need some money. Jaina does have some items that could sell if she could find the right buyer, or she could, of course, trade it for other goods that they might need. But Rorik's main concern now that they're all healed up is that this previous adventure, was quite a bit of a bust. And now they're really running in red in the dough. They've got about 5 gold and 61 silver after spending some silver at the inn. So that's not really a whole lot here. And if they plan on going out and surviving, they're going to need more money. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to roll up on a quest. This is going to be taken from chapter 8 in the core rulebook, specifically page 109. There's a nice little handy-dandy table that we can roll on to actually create a quest for our heroes. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to roll a d4 to see where they hear about this quest. So I got my d4. Let's go ahead and roll and see what's coming. So we have a 2. So at the first light of dawn, the characters come across what? So we got a d6. Let's see what they come across. A 4. Gossip. Okay. So at the first light of dawn, they start to hear some gossip from, about, or with. This is going to be a d8 roll here. That is a 1, so Karvago, a mysterious mage. One day at the first light of dawn, we come across some gossip about Karvago, a mysterious mage, who wants something with a d10. Let's see. What does he want? An 8. He wants to protect something, and we're going to need a d12 for this one. What's he going to protect? A 1. A magical artifact, okay. I mean, it makes sense. He's a mysterious mage. He wants to protect a magical artifact called something. And this is going to be a d20 roll. Another 4. The Heart of Ardana. Ooh, okay. So, story thus far. One day, at the first light of dawn, characters come across some gossip as they set out from the tavern. They hear about Karvago, a mysterious mage who wants to protect something called the Heart of Ardana. We don't know specifically what this does just yet, and it might not even matter, because what does matter is that this Karvago guy needs some help. So, Where can we put Karvago is the main question. This might not even be a specific place that's marked on the map either, and it doesn't really look like it. So I'm thinking that we're going to continue on and roll to see just exactly where this can be. So on the next page, on page 110, we have the journey. So D4, D6, 8, 10, 12, and then 20, just to kind of see what is out there. So the journey is D4, let's see. 3, so the journey is arduous with unpredictable weather and inaccessible roads. So obviously somewhere out in the middle of nowhere possibly. And ends, that's a 1, in the shadow of a mountain. Ooh, okay, so possibly up north. Well, actually, technically, this whole entire area is surrounded by mountains. So very interesting on that part. So I guess we should probably see if we're going north, east, south, or west. Well, let's continue on and we'll worry about that a little bit later. So we're going to need a D8 because there is a what? A number 7. There is a strangely shaped D10. 3. Tomb. There's a strangely shaped tomb. Is it called Rittermount by any chance? No, I'm just kidding. We've already been there. Let's not revisit. So a strangely shaped tomb surrounded by, here's our D12 roll. 4. Heavy rain clouds. So unpredictable weather, heavy rain clouds. Maybe it's always raining in this area. Kind of like that one place in Naruto, I suppose. Well, technically, was it always raining there? I don't know. It's the fight with the paper lady is what I'm kind of remembering. The place is called, that's going to be our D20 roll. 17. So, Coppergate. Interesting. Coppergate. This Coppergate is somewhere in the shadow of a mountain, and it is a tomb of some sort. It's a strangely shaped tomb. And so I guess the first thing that we need to decide is this Karvago guy. Is he actually in town, or is this a place where we need to go in order to get this quest or whatever? So we're going to go ahead and ask the magical oracle dice here. Is Karvago in outskirt? Can we meet with him? No, but possibly maybe his little towers on the way, or no, but he is at Coppergate, because if he wants to protect the heart of Ardana, then he's probably already at the place doing whatever magic he needs to do to keep it safe. Okay, we don't know what danger there is just yet. That's something that we'll of course ask Karvago when we get there. So this journey is arduous with unpredictable weather and inaccessible roads. So we're going up into the mountains, and I'm really thinking that we need to find out if we're going north, east, south, or west. So what we're going to do is, I think we're going to roll a D8. So a D8 is pretty good for rolling directions because you have your north, northeast, east, southeast, south kind of directions. And so one is pretty much going to be straight up north. And then as we keep getting higher, it just keeps kind of going around. So let's see, we got a D8. Let's see what happens. Where are we going? On a 3. So that's going to be east. So that's really interesting because we are going east, or rather this location is going to be to the east. And it seems like we might actually have to cross some sort of marshes called the Haunted Marshes, which is a pretty awesome name that tells you everything you need to know right there. There's also a road that goes out to the Road's End Inn. As Rorik is going around town trying to get more information about where Karvago is and what there is out to the east, people are going to tell him about this road and this Road's End Inn. And then maybe a little bit about the Haunted Marshes as well. So it looks like the distance between Outskirt and Road's End Inn is about the same as Outskirt to Rittermount, so it'll take at least 2 days to get there. And then possibly, since by this point we're going to be going off the road, it'll be 3, maybe 4 days to cross the marshes to kind of get to where this Coppergate is. It is kind of a bit of a stretch for Rorik to travel far out to the east just to help some mysterious mage in protecting this Heart of Ardano, or whatever it is. The gossip that he's been hearing have all pointed out that this mage is quite wealthy. He has enough wealth to pay whoever can help him with this problem. So he is very hopeful that the outcome from this quest can actually be beneficial. Then again, he is very much non-trusting of other mages at the moment. Then again, if this mage originated from here in the Misty Vale, then he might not know the troubles that shadow him and Jaina. So there's also that bit of hope as well. So we got our quest all sorted out. Now we actually need to go shopping for this journey, because this is probably going to be a multi-day, well, this is for sure going to be a multi-day journey. And we are going to need quite a bit of supplies in the form of rations, most likely, because we're actually out of rations. We used up all of the rations to make it to Outskirts, so we're going to need some trade goods. So that means we're going to Master Ulvar's, everybody's favorite general store in Outskirts. So let's see, what do we absolutely need? I've actually got a list right here. The first thing that we're going to get is a cloak for Grub, because we do need him to be protected from the sunlight, or else he's gonna burn like a vampire. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of what's going on in my head regarding that. So we are going to buy him a cloak, and that's gonna cost us 8 silver right there. In keeping with making sure that Grub has everything he needs, we're also going to get him some sleeping fur. That way he can actually, sleep, because there's a tent, it's a small tent, that'll fit Jaina and Rorik, but Grub, I think it would be too much of a stretch if it'll also fit Grub, even though he is a small guy. So we are going to get him his own sleeping fur, and that's going to cost us 1 gold. We're at least going to get 3 torches, 1 for each person on the team. That way we've all at least got 1. I think we're also going to get Grub a backpack as well, which is going to cost 2 gold. Oh boy, man, we are just racking up a bill already. That way we can make use of the third person in our party for at least, loot and things like that. And speaking of which, let's go over the rules of encumbrance real fast. So on our character sheet, we do have slots for 10 items, although you can carry a number of items equal to half of your strength rounded up in your inventory without difficulty. Only the items written down in your inventory box count towards encumbrance. And so things that we should not be keeping track of in our inventory are things like weapons and armor and shields and things like that. Because we are actually wearing that does not figure into the weight that we have. So remember, we can have at most 3 weapons at hand, which means that they are worn on our belt or otherwise readily available for use in combat. Weapons kept at hand are recorded under weapons on the character sheet and do not count towards your encumbrance. Shields count as weapons and are also recorded there, so we don't have to worry about Rorik's swords and shields and whatnot. Rations are a little bit different, because 4 rations equal 1 pound of food, or 1 weight, I suppose. So we do need to take that into account when we're figuring out our weight. So on the character sheet, there actually is a spot for weight limit or encumbrance limit. It's right next to inventory. So on my character sheet, for example, I put 7/9. So 7 without the backpack, 9 with the backpack. Since Grub actually doesn't have a bonus to strength damage, I'm going to assume that his strength is probably around 10. So that means he can carry 5 weight, but with the backpack it's going to become 7. So he actually does have some carrying power. For Jaina, her carrying capacity is going to be about 6, because her strength score is at 11, so rounded up is going to be 6. She does not have a backpack, and I don't think we're going to want to give her a backpack, at least for now, because money is a little bit tight. So something that we really do need to worry about is rations, because remember, 4 rations is going to equal 1 weight, and that can really eat up our encumbrance quite fast if we're not careful. So I am going to buy 4 field ration kits for every person. That's going to cost us 12 silver. Something else that we could really and we should look into is hunting and fishing, which is a skill. And Rorik is, well, he's kind of average. He's got a 10 in that, while Jaina has 6. Grub is probably going to be a little bit better at the hunting and gathering, because he's a goblin, and that's kind of what they do. But we do need to start thinking about food resource when we're out in the field. And I think getting a fishing rod is going to be a valuable resource for us. We could get a snare, but a snare is one-time use only, and that does take up a weight. Whereas a fishing rod, you can actually use multiple times. And we are going to be out, it looks like, in a place where there is water, so we can actually make use of that. So a fishing rod is going to be 8 silver. So the 12 rations that we've just bought is going to equal about 12 silver, and the fishing rod will equal 8 silver, so 20 silver altogether for food resources and things like that. So at the end of the day, that gives us about 2 gold and 31 silver. So we're really not doing too well cost-wise. But Jaina is going to strongly suggest that we buy a donkey. And actually, we gotta see if there is one for sale, because I think that would be quite a bit of a stretch to say that, hey, somebody's got a donkey for sale in this place. We're actually going to ask the magical oracle, Dai, is there a donkey that we can buy in Outskirt? Maybe, okay. Really, the only thing that I can say would factor into that would be bartering. And Rorik's not so good at bartering, unfortunately. So we got our D20. We need to get a 5 or under for bartering to see if we can buy a donkey. Let's see what happens. Wow, a 6? That's actually really close. I'm almost tempted to say I want to go ahead and push that roll. I think we will. I would really like to have a donkey for traveling purposes. I know that we can't ride a donkey, but it's just gonna be just another thing that we can use to carry our resources. And so really, the only thing that I really want to take here is angry. Like, whoever Rorik is talking to is just giving him the roundabout, trying to drive up the price. Yeah, I might have this donkey for sale, but it's gonna cost you quite a bit. And I think Rorik is just getting a little bit upset, so he's gonna try to be a little bit more forceful in his negotiation practices. And unfortunately, it's not going to work out in his favor. So he's angry and he kind of storms off. No donkey, unfortunately. Okay, that's the way it happens sometimes. But something else that is going to come to his mind. When he was in the Ritter Mound, they fought the lady, and a couple of things came out from that. One was a set of armor, and the other was a hammer. Because the hammer has no use for him, he left that behind in the tomb. But the armor, he does have a use for, and I think he took that with him. And we had just enough weight to kind of put us in there to make sure that we carried that back with us. So he did bring that armor back. It is a gilded chainmail armor. And so the thing that's special about this piece is that it only gives a bane on sneak rolls, which if you look on page 37 in the adventure book, the gilded chainmail is light and flexible, so it has an armor rating of 4, which he already has, and it only gives bane to sneaking rolls. So the way that I interpret that is it's only going to give a bane to sneaking rolls. It's not going to give a bane to swim rolls, which an obscure rule is that the chainmail does give a bane to swimming rolls, and it gives a bane to evasion rolls. We no longer have a bane on swimming, and we no longer have a bane on evasion rolls. And so we're gonna make a stop to the smithy. This is a large log building with an open front. The glow of a hearth can be glimpsed through the smoke, and from the hooks in the ceiling hang all kinds of weapons and armor pieces. Heavy hammer blows and a melodic dwarven rumble is pouring out into the village square. And so Rorik comes across this smithy, and he sees two men, two twins. They look very similar, except that their beards are in different fashions. The smithy is run by Oakhold and Badenor, dwarven twins from the Coomer Mountains, who chose to settle down among the adventurers in Outskirt after a difficult inheritance dispute. The extroverted Oakhold handles the customers, while Badenor prefers to toil in a smithy with the hammer as his only company. And so, of course, Oakhold is going to come out to meet Rorik, And Rorik is going to kind of hold up his backpack with the gilded chainmail armor, and he's going to ask if he can fit this onto him. And it's just a fitting. It's not like a total rework of the armor. He's not asking to build anything for it. So I don't think it's really going to take a whole lot of time. Perhaps maybe a day's worth, like the rest of the day. And it's probably going to equal maybe like a gold piece. I don't know, maybe 2 gold. Let's go ahead and go with that. It's going to cost 2 gold, so that's going to get rid of the rest of our gold. Just to kind of fit this armor for Rorik, so it's now usable by him. It's not really a rule, I don't think, in the core rulebook, but it is something that logistically makes sense. That, you know, this was the armor of a woman who may or may not be the same size as Rorik, and so it does need to be fitted for him so it acts a little bit better and we get, you know, the full value of the armor, the defensive value of the armor, rather. So again, not really game mechanics, just something that I like to interpret in a lot of my games that run this style, like fantasy style, where you're getting a lot of loot and things like that. We are going to spend a little bit of time, probably the rest of the day, getting fitted for this armor, but now we've actually got better armor in a sense. So I think part of the agreement is that we're trading in our chainmail, and we are paying 2 gold to upgrade our armor in a sense. Not a bad proposition. So we still have 4 armor, but now we only have a ban on sneaking. So at the end of the day, we get back to the 3 Stags Inn, and we're going to go ahead and rest up, which will give, you know, Grub and Rorik some extra time to check their wounds and things like that. And in the morning, it's going to be time to set out for this adventure. And so really, I think the first place that they're going to want to go is to the Road's End Inn. And that will, of course, be a 2-day journey. Before they leave the 3 Stags Inn, well, let's see. Is Rorik going to notice something? Is Rorik going to notice that somebody is maybe watching him? And so we're going to use an awareness roll. And by the way, by this point, since he did rest, he is no longer angry. He's had some time to cool it over. He's got new armor, and so he's a happy fella. So we're gonna roll to see if he notices anything. And this is going to be an 11 for him in his awareness. A 10. As he leads Jaina and Grub outside, he kind of takes a look around, and he notices that Annabella is kind of watching him, and she gives him a playful smile. Because I imagine that they've had a bit to talk about when he got back and he was inquiring about Quasimoon, and so she does give him that little bit of a playful smile, and he kind of smiles back, and he leaves. And so now that they are outside, they approach the eastern gate. Begins to notice that Grub is not looking too happy. It's a nice sunny day, and so he says, "Oh yeah, I almost forgot." And he reaches in his backpack and he gives Grub the nice little cloak that he bought from the grocer. But not only that, he kind of kneels down and he reaches in his pack again and he pulls out this Mastercraft short sword that he's been holding on to. I believe he got this way back on like their first quest after reaching the Misty Vale, and so he's been holding on to it for quite a while. And he just kneels down and says, "You've been such a great little goblin. You've helped out my sister, and you've protected me, and I think that in turn deserves a little bit of kindness, and so this cloak will help you from the sunlight, but this short sword, it is finely crafted, and I think it will help protect you as well." And I think Grub is going to kind of look up at Rorik, and there's a little bit of an understanding between the two of them in this instance, and I think there's also a little bit of a bond that's formed between them. Because remember, Grub kind of saved Rorik in Rittermount Tomb, and Rorik definitely saved Grub when they were being chased by the White. Having Rorik entrust the goblin with this master-crafted short sword is definitely going to be something that Grub is going to remember. And so now, newly armed, our adventurers are going to travel east. And so we are going to take our D12 to see if there are any random encounters. Of course, I'm going to go back to my homebrewed rules that are 1 through 6. We're going to ask the magical oracle die if something happens or if nothing really does happen, and we'll go from there. So our D12 says a D10. That's gonna be some adventurers. Ooh. 3 banged up adventurers on their way home from the same adventure site the player characters are headed to. They are a human thief, a wolfkin warrior, and a mallard wizard, all with stats as typical adventurers on page 105 in the rulebook. They have taken a brutal beating and warned the player characters to turn back. They can provide details about the site if they get something in return. Ooh, very interesting. So I guess this is a way that we could present some danger ahead of time to see what is going on in Coppergate. So let's go ahead and see. So on the adventure site, we're gonna roll the D8 and possibly the D10 to see what kind of a danger or what kind of NPCs we can expect to meet there. So we have a D8 roll and a D10 roll. So for the D8, we have 4, which is bandits. Okay, so D8 bandits. Let's see, D8, 2 bandits and what? Let's find out. And you know, I'm kind of looking on this list here under the D10 side, and there's only 2 rolls or 2 instances that I see that I would really like to take. It's either the Angry Troll or the Large Minotaur. And so what we're going to do, we're going to roll a simple D6. Odds will be the Angry Troll, and an even will be the Large Minotaur. So let's see what we have. Odd, so a 3 is odd, so we have the Angry Troll to contend with. So the Angry Troll with these 2 bandits are hounding Coppergate, or this wizard, Karvago. So I'm sure we'll find out what that is. And so what did we give up? That's a very good question, actually. What did we give up? Oh, how about this? It's a band of adventurers, right? There's the thief, the warrior, and the wizard. So let's say that we go ahead and use up 3 bandages to try to heal them up. So now we're at 4 bandages out of the 10 initially that we had before. So, hey, we got them, so we might as well make use of them, am I right? And so after we send the adventurers on their way, we are of course going to set up some camp. We're gonna have Rorik's roll for bushcraft to see if he can set up the tent and the campsite. His bushcraft is at 9, so not that great, but it's actually better than Jaina's. So got our D20, let's see what happens. A 16, ooh, man, that is actually not good. But of course, since we do have a tent, I forgot, we actually get a boon on this roll. So let's try again with our other die. And that is a 3. So yes, we do successfully set up the tent and the campsite and all of that. So we are good to go. And so we are going to consume one of our rations for this part of the journey, since we're really not near the marshes or where there's any body of water to make use of that fishing rod just quite yet. So the next day, as our heroes begin to travel east along the road, they notice that storm clouds have kind of gathered and the wind is now blowing in a perilous direction. Later on in that evening, by the time they reach the road ends in, it has begun to rain. And not only just rain, it's a downpour with thunder and lightning all around. We're gonna have to roll a bushcraft for the weather to see if they can withstand, and if not, they're going to be cold. And so we've got 3 D20s here. The green one is for Grub, the black one's for Rorik, the white one is for Jaina. And this is a straight up bushcraft roll for everybody here. So 10 for Grub, 9 for Rorik, and a 6 for Jaina. So let's roll and see what happens. And only Jaina with her cloak, I forgot she does have a cloak, so she's the only one that actually is successful. So she's not cold, while Rorik and Grub are kind of left. Could Grub actually use the fur sleeping bag? Like maybe he just puts it on top and he's like walking around with it on his head. I don't know. I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch. But we do eventually make it to the road ends in. Rorik and Grub are cold, while Jaina's got herself wrapped around with Rorik's cloak that he gave her a long time ago. And, well, what's at this inn? We're gonna find out in the next episode.
Aren't we the band of adventurers setting out on some new quest? I mean, a fighter, a mage, and a goblin. It's just like the stories Pa used to tell us when we were young, isn't it, dearest brother? Check back every other Thursday for a new episode of Table for One, a solo role-playing podcast. If you would like to support this podcast, please rate it or give it a thumbs up, wherever you happen to be listening from. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, subscribe and be sure to leave a comment. Music was provided by Tabletop Audio and AI voice work by 11 Labs. Do you think this inn will have a bath? All this walking is killing my feet. I should have been a mentalist so I could learn fly.